The ancient Mesopotamians believed that the underworld was home to many demons, which are sometimes referred to as offspring of Aralai. Sometimes these demons leave the underworld and terrorize mortals on Earth with the purpose of dragging unfortunate mortals back to hell. Whether it's fiction or not, everyone loves a good story. But let's be honest, the stories that people value the most are those that can be confirmed as true events, that often feature the endless battle between good and evil. People like myself are naturally attracted to these stories like a moth to a flame, especially if they include a ghost or a supernatural event. There's just some energy attached to those stories that we can't resist. Some people, however, lie about their stories and sell them as truth. So here we are, ready to take a deeper look into The Conjuring and find out if this franchise was actually based on any real stories or not. Hello everybody and welcome to Lights, Camera, History. And honestly, I can't talk about any paranormal without hearing... So there, you have that. It was stuck in my head the entire time we were researching the material for this video. Now we know some of you are rolling your eyes right now. Why are we doing a historical review of The Conjuring? You think it's all in good fun, right? Well, even researching this, we found a lot that plays into The Conjuring being real. People even visit the house the first movie took place in, as if it's a tourist destination. But every story has a $ next to it, so this one might be fun. Directed by James Wan and starring Patrick Wilson, Vera Farmiga, Ron Livingston, Lily Anderson, The Conjuring has been causing nightmares since 2013. But looking at those $2 billion the franchise has collected at the box office, it seems like people are always coming back for more. There are now 8 films in the Conjuring universe. This review will only cover the first movie, but trust me, we'll have more than enough to determine if these events actually happened. And more importantly, we'll be able to determine the quality of the film that gave birth to a full franchise. It's said that the entire franchise is based on the real-life investigations of Ed and Lorraine Warren. It even has that based on label that movie studios use to sell us this type of film. But how much of this is true? Stick around to find out all about The Conjuring in this review. If you like this video, please hit that subscribe button or join us down in the comments. Any support is appreciated, and if you don't, we're gonna haunt you forever. I'm waiting. All right, let's do this. Ed and Lorraine Warren were the founders of the New England Society for Psychic Research. Together, they looked into many prominent cases of alleged hauntings and other paranormal incidents. Ed's a demonologist, and Lorraine, a trance medium, have inspired dozens of movies, books, and TV shows. And they've also written their own books. The couple even operated a museum dedicated to demonology. Now, before we begin, I'd like to take a minute and thank Ed for his service in World War II. He served honorably in the Navy and should be honored for his service in the Atlantic. I say that now because this video will not be very kind to him. While the couple claims to have worked in the investigation of multiple paranormal events and even go as far as saying that they took part in many exorcisms throughout their career, their words are misleading and tricky. In many famous cases, they would say that an exorcism was performed, but they never say who performed them. In fact, I searched through papal records and documents from other Catholic organizations and could never find any link to any exorcisms that involved the Warrens. They also claim that throughout their careers they were church approved, which is not even a real thing. Only a select group of priests are sanctioned for exorcisms. Moreover, the Catholic Church has criticized the Warrens for their depiction of exorcisms. Catholic journalist Brad Miner said the references are scattered and sometimes slight, relying on crucifixes, holy water, and a popular general statement that Hollywood writers are fond of, without explaining who in the Vatican or how or why this kind of approval is needed or given. One thing is for sure. The Warrens were well-known paranormal investigators. They appeared on radio, in newspapers, and even on TV. But were their statements true or accurate? That's the real question. In many instances, other paranormal investigators have accused the Warrens of sensationalizing basic details. In some cases, they would say they have absolute proof, pictures, or videos of demons. But it seems like almost nobody has seen these. and few who have say these materials are just a whole lot of nothing. Some of their other hijinks include claiming to have met a vampire. For proof, they have his coffin. But there's no vampire. Now, let's look at the events that shaped the story behind the 2013 movie. The movie is about the Perron family who moved to Harrisville, Rhode Island in 1971. To be more specific, they moved into the old Arnold estate, which is pictured here and is still standing today. Things seem normal at first, but slowly they begin to witness small supernatural incidents, such as items being missing or moved. Nothing too crazy. According to the family, the mom researched the history of the house and found stories about Bathsheba Sherman's suicide and the murders that happened throughout the property. It was after these findings that things took a turn for the worse. One notable story involving the mom comes from the Providence Journal. Mrs. Perron said she awoke before dawn one morning to find an apparition by her bed, the head of an old woman hanging off to one side over an old gray dress. There was this creepy, demonic voice that said, "Get out, get out. I'll drive you out with death and gloom." From this point on, the family was tormented by demons to the point where they felt help was needed. And so, the Warrens would begin their paranormal investigation sometime around 1973. And thanks to that, we have a movie today. The movie draws inspiration from the incidents involving the family of Roger and Carolyn Perron at their old farmhouse, the one I just showed you. The couple moves in with their 5 daughters, Andrea, Nancy, Christine, Cindy, and April. Meanwhile, their dog Sadie, who didn't exist in real life, refuses to enter the house. Almost immediately after the family moves in, demonic incidents begin to haunt the family. Every clock in the house stops at 3:07 a.m. Birds fly into their windows. Sadie is found dead in the morning, and Carolyn wakes up with large bruises. Next, Andrea and Cindy are attacked in their bedrooms in the middle of the night, which really makes us wonder, how come all the scary stuff happens at night? Anyway, this sets up the entrance of our protagonist, Ed and Lorraine Warren, which I just want to say is some nice Hollywood casting. The Warrens conclude, by what I'm sure is through research, that the house once belonged to an accused witch named Bathsheba Sherman, who sacrificed her newborn baby to the devil and killed herself in 1863 at, you guessed it, 3:07 in the morning after cursing all who take her land. On top of that, they find that dozens of other suicides and murders took place on the property. The movie goes on with Bathsheba as the main spirit haunting the family. Then, Carolyn gets overtaken by the demon of Bathsheba, and that's when the family decides to come to the Catholic Church for an exorcism. However, since they're not members of the church, the priest says the Vatican will have to give authorization. All hell breaks loose with possessed characters trying to kill non-possessed characters, and the Warrens have to perform an exorcism all by themselves. So, this is not a video to convince you that Ed and Lorraine Warren were soldiers of God sent to rid the world of demons. This is the story of 2 cons. In fact, this is the true story of the Conjuring. I admit they are often praised by some of their documentation, consistency, and skill in storytelling. However, the couple has never offered up any proof of the events in this or any of their other cases. They only have audio tapes and writings from witnesses to back up their claims. The evidence I just listed is pretty weak. And I mentioned earlier that many people have said that this evidence is not even believable at face value. Jamie Rubio, who went through all the records, land deeds, newspaper clips, and everything else just to conclude that the movie completely misrepresented Bathsheba's life. If Bathsheba Sherman were alive today, she could sue the Warrens, Warner Brothers, and the director for complete slander. In the movie, Bathsheba was said to have been a witch who worshipped the devil, sacrificed her baby to Satan, and then hung herself from the tree in the backyard. Her spirit allegedly terrorized all who live in the home, also causing all the different tenants over the years to kill their own children and allegedly possessed Carolyn Perrone. You gotta wonder if the real estate agent was disclosing all this to new potential tenants. There's no documentation that supports the fact that she killed a child. She did have some children die young, but the death rate among infants was appalling at that time. That was life in the 19th century. And for someone who was accused of being a witch, she was quite privileged to be buried next to her family with a proper burial and tombstone. So the one possible solution to this puzzle is that perhaps Bathsheba was never considered a witch, and they just demonized her personality to make her fit into this story. That means that the producers used a real person that lived a perfectly normal life to drum up drama. This happens a lot. A person that's not around to defend themselves is now the ghost in someone else's folklore. Hey, I can do it too. Hear me out. Ed Warren robbed banks, burned people's houses down, and never paid his taxes.
That's a lie! He knows.
Too bad he's not here to defend the accusations. He passed away in 2006, so he can't come to me and defend himself, just like poor Bathsheba. Now here's something he did say when asked about a story that didn't hold up. He said, "All the people who come to us are crazy." You mean the perfect kind of people you can't make a buck off? Right, Ed? And don't get me started on the case The Conjuring 2 is based on, which is an obvious hoax, and the Warrens used that case to profit in book sales. But that belongs in another video. The truth is, the Warrens used these people to become a chapter in their book of demonology. Now, I know some of you probably already took this movie with a grain of salt. It is Hollywood after all. But this is a huge problem with the based on a true story label. It's used as a storytelling device that many will accept without questioning it. Other historical movies have done this too as a way to add to the drama. At the same time, I don't want to discount any of the experiences the Perrone family had. They seemed genuinely terrified to this day. At first it was small stuff, like a broom being moved to a different location. They did some research on the property, and unfortunately it was after the research that many of the major stories were reported. Then the Warrens entered, and so began the speaking in tongues, awful smells, sightings of spirits, and so on. The truest of all claims is that Lorraine contributed to the movie. In an article by Jude Doyle, she claimed that the Warrens had motivations. She writes that the Warrens would use haunting stories to promote certain biblical values or to rail against lifestyle choices. I believe the Warrens' motivations were led by money. They used their talents to sell books and screen rights to their books. But contradictory claims started to come to the surface after Ed Warren passed away. If you want to know more about the couple, feel free to look around on your own, but for the sake of this video and the authenticity of The Conjuring, I want to go back to the Perrone family. It'd be a bit hypocritical of me to discredit the people in this story since I've never been in that house, and I definitely didn't live with the Perrones when they experienced these events. But if you would like to hear from someone who was there in the house, Andrea is still living. According to multiple sources, there are things she still won't talk about to this day. However, she has written 6 books about her experiences, so check those out yourself. So, for the final grade, we give this an F. F for fake. The stuff that is true, the people existed, Rhode Island is a real state, and Patrick Wilson is a good-looking guy and a great casting choice. So there's that. This concludes this story, which is just that, a story. Do you agree with that? What do you think? Comment down below. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this review. Remember, subscribe or I'll haunt you forever.